Welcome everyone to the Traveling Vegan channel. I'm Phil Nicozisis, author of Have Laptop Will Travel. Soon we'll have Laptop Will Travel, the anniversary edition, coming very soon. Today I'm so happy, again, I have you back on my show, Dr. Will Tuttle from California and also Florida. You're in residency here at Hippocrates, teaching and lecturing to the guests there. And welcome to the show.
Thank you, Philip.
And usually we're here to talk about veganism, but today we're here to talk about our civil liberties in the age of these lockdowns that we're in. And what do you think about all that? How do you, as just a snapshot for today, where do you think we're at with the pandemic, and why do you think, actually, what are some of the underlying hidden reasons for that we're experiencing COVID and the much greater social stress of the past year? Why do you think that is?
Right. You know, I think it's an incredibly important question because what's really happening, I think, in many ways, just in the last year, is the dramatic erosion of our civil liberties. And what's happening with the mask enforcement and the lockdowns and the talk of contact tracing and increasingly mandatory vaccinations are really things that go against the principles of the Nuremberg trials and also the United Nations agreements about basic human rights, as well as our constitutional rights for free speech and freedom of assembly and freedom of religion. So this is a dramatic loss of liberties, and this is something, I think, basically that's been in the works probably for at least the last 40 or 50 years. You can see clearly in my lifetime, I remember just going back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, how governmental agencies have been increasingly captured by large-scale corporations and financial institutions. So that's the outer level. We have more power by these large corporations, telecommunications and big pharmaceutical corporations, medical corporations. And that's, I think, a lot of what's happening. The very super rich elite are, in many ways, I think, calling in their chips, and people are, unfortunately, I think, acquiescing to this more than we should be. But I think there's a deeper level of what's going on, and that's what I'd like to talk about. That has to do with what you talked about earlier, which is veganism, our routine mistreatment of animals, and the mentality of domination and exploitation of animals for food and other products, which goes back about 10,000 years. In my book, The World Peace Diet, I talk about this a little bit, and really I've been warning, as you and I actually and Madeline have done quite a bit of traveling together and lecturing in other countries and also in the United States, that essentially whatever we do to others ends up happening to ourselves. And so if we're going to insist on continuing to imprison and harm and force medicate billions of animals on a routine basis, we're going to begin to find the same thing happening to us. And
so, like, we stole their purposes, and now it's coming back. They're stealing our purposes.
Well, what it is, yes, in a sense, it's like we've been forcing cows and pigs and chickens and turkeys and ducks and geese and fishes and all these animals that we want to use into hyper-confinement and misery, and we, as you say, we steal their purposes, and we steal their lives, we steal their babies, we steal their flesh, we steal everything from them, and whenever we do that to others, the same thing happens to us. So it's not them stealing our purposes, it's us. You know, we're stealing our own purposes by going along with a system of such massive violence. I don't think perhaps most of our viewers haven't been to factory farms or slaughterhouses or to stockyards like we have, but Madeline and I have been to these places, and the harm and violence and brutality to these animals is enormous. And so I think we shouldn't be so, in a sense, shallow to think that we can just sow seeds of massive violence and abuse to all these animals and have it just evaporate into thin air. For example, these animals are all vaccinated, like injected, but they keep using the same needle over and over again into pigs until the needle breaks, and then you get another one. It's just They don't ask the pigs if they would like to be vaccinated, or the cows or the animals. They just, that's what's done to them. It's,
Well,
they own them.
Speaking of vaccines, what is sickness and what role do pathogens play?
That's the key. We think that somehow sickness is something that comes to us in the sense we're victims. There's these dangerous germs and viruses and bacteria out there.
We're taught to be afraid of the germs. We're taught to be afraid of these viruses.
We're conditioned, we're bombarded with this message from the time we're born, basically, by our parents very often, who've also been bombarded with the same message, and by the doctors and the medical and the pharmaceutical industry, because that's how they make their money. And I think what we have to realize is this is also part of the animal agriculture mentality. The animal agriculture mentality is that we dominate and exploit animals and we use them. And we've been doing this for 10,000 years. And so we are ourselves the hidden agents of violence and disease to these animals. So if I go into a store, for example, take out my wallet and I pay for bacon or cheese or something like that, somewhere an animal is going to be attacked and killed because of me, right? But they can't see me. And so we're doing this. All of us are sowing seeds of terror and fear and pain in other beings. And then at a deep level, here we are, we're afraid that we're going to be attacked by some unseen beings. These viruses and these bacteria, we can't see them, but they're out to get us. And so I think really it's essential for our society to move to a totally vegan, plant-based way of living based on kindness and compassion and respect for animals and nature. Otherwise, we're sowing seeds of violence and abuse in animals, and we're reaping the same thing in ourselves. And we have this mentality that we're separate from nature and we have to somehow dominate nature, and we have to kill off all these bacteria, these dangerous viruses. And what the newest science is showing is that bacteria and viruses are actually our friends. That if there's more bacteria in our bodies than there are us, right, in terms of cells.
Cells, yeah.
And if they died, we would die. There's trillions of viruses inside us. If they died, we would die. So these viruses and bacteria are essential for our life.
So then how can we stay healthy and also contribute to a healthier, more liberated world for all of us?
I think the key to that is to question the official narratives in our society and to come back home to our own inner wisdom and realize we're part of a beautiful unfoldment of life on this planet that's essentially benevolent. That we can reach out to each other, we can have solidarity with each other, with nature,
we can celebrate
with animals.
Christmas and Thanksgiving together and not be told
Yeah.
that we can't gather in gatherings.
Not just that, you're right. Not just that. It's like just to live our lives in a way that's different from the way of animal agriculture, which is that when we look at a forest, we see board feet of lumber and how we can exploit that and how we can cut it down. To try to see more the ecosystem as a living web of life that we're part of. Try to see animals as beings worthy of our respect. Try to see, in a sense, our own ecosystem, our body, as having tremendous health. Like, we travel and we are able to live, like Madeline and I have been doing this for years too, and we take responsibility for the quality of our health. We don't say, okay, I'm only going to be healthy if I go to a doctor and get a drug or some kind of injection or some kind of a procedure. So I think that's the main thing we can do. If we take responsibility for the quality of our own immune system, then we find that viruses and bacteria are our friends. That's how I feel. I mean, if every once in a while I get a little cold or something, and I'm happy. It's like not something I'm like going to try to destroy that and kill those bacteria and the virus. If I get a strep throat,
kind of like a reset.
Yeah, I get a strep throat, right? Every once in a while, not that often, maybe, but occasionally. And I know we all live in a world with toxins. There's over, like they say, 80,000 chemicals have been invented by these chemical companies, and they're spewing them into the air, the water, the food, everywhere. So our bodies accumulate toxins, so they want to clean out. So I get a strep throat, which is, cleaning out a little bit. And so the strep bacteria is my friend, and it's helping me to clean out. So I take it a day or two, whatever, and clean out. If I go to the doctor and say, oh, I have this strep throat, it's terrible, give me something to make it go away, then we're suppressing the symptom. It drives the toxin deeper, and then we keep doing that over and over again. Pretty soon we have prostate cancer, colon cancer, all other, breast cancer, much more serious diseases. The whole idea is our body has ways of detoxifying which are healthy, and we should be allowing that. And what we're doing is we're forcing people to wear masks, right? I mean, this is like, our body has 4 main ways of detoxifying: through the urine, through the feces, through the skin, and through the breath. And so we put a mask on.
And we've got lots of data on masks. It's not like we don't know. There's a lot of data about whether masks will work on bacteria, which is why they wear them in the operating room.
Well, no, that's just for liquid, actually.
That's
so they don't spit in the wounds.
Right, for bacteria. But for viruses, we actually have at least a decade of peer-reviewed data that show that that's not going to work. Let's though actually talk more specifically about our civil liberties. From my perspective, I mean, we've both been. Can't say this about everybody in this production room right here. I mean, we've been around since before the internet was invented, and when the internet started, it was this amazing thing that just blew us through into the next level of essentially freedom. We didn't even see it coming that it would become essentially a surveillance tool, which is what it's become at this time. So it's become a centralization, and it's been allowed to then centralize data for control from our governments to the citizens. So how can we actually decentralize this technology, decentralize our society, escape from victimhood, and create better communities, more sustainable communities?
Well, I think the first step is awareness. So I'm so glad you have this program and this channel. And as you say, the internet has become not just a tool of surveillance, but also a tool of censorship. It's really limiting the amount of information and restricting the information that is being able to get to people. And I think we're all aware of that. And this is being controlled by centralized power. Big corporations, financial holding institutions, governmental agencies that are captured. So basically, I think the idea is for each one of us to take responsibility for the quality of our information, to question where our information is coming from, and take responsibility for the quality of our food, our energy, as much as we can to become more locally sustainable. So to support local farmers markets, support local small-scale information networks like this one. Alternative media is really important. Alternative energy, like when Madeline and I, our house is totally powered by solar. We have planted our own food forest. We're growing our own food. We're working with neighbors to try to create community that's more sustainable, because centralized systems are fragile, and when they go down, everybody goes down.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
I always worry about that. They call that an EMP, an electromagnetic explosion.
Pulse, right?
Pulse. You know, as a free market capitalist, or at least the ideals of voluntary exchange, I always, when people say, well, we're against censoring of the internet or free speech, I always think, well, we should have another company come up and offer a better mousetrap that doesn't censor. And, you know, if we're in this age of lockdowns, there should be a country or a state. And I think the state is, well, we're in Florida, that's pretty close. We should have states that say, you know what, we're not going to abuse our citizens the way they're doing in California and Florida. This way people can vote with their feet. And, this way we can raise capital to have a Facebook that's basically a free and open platform that doesn't pick sides, that doesn't act like a publisher. So I keep hoping and yearning for that day where we have clear choices to move away from our loss of freedom. And but I don't know what we're going to do if we have. I mean, you and I have been, along with your wife Madeline, we've been to 13 countries sharing the vegan message, and we go into a place like India, and in 12 days we hit 10 cities. And through Asia, we went to Indonesia, we went to Thailand, we went to Singapore, we went where were we after that? I forget. We went to 2 other countries. Malaysia, that's it. Yeah, and cities in between. Gosh, if we have to have all kinds of paper right now, the paperwork, there's 8 different pieces of paperwork to come into Thailand. Right. And you have to have, if your itinerary changes, all of your other 7 pieces of paperwork have to get refilled out and approved by the Thai consulate. And you've got all kinds of problems I see on the Facebook page, this Facebook groups, and people trying to get to places. And I can't believe the people of the governments are going along with this. And I think the politicians, are afraid of one death being responsible for one death. And so they're operating out of fear. They're selling fear. And, I know from my people in my own family they're just in the COVID cult. And even if you got it, I had COVID. My parents had COVID. I probably, violating some confidentiality, but just about everybody I know had COVID or some, version of a virus where we felt ill. And, but you know what? It's not good enough. Like, you still, wait, I'm going to get the virus. Can I travel freely? No. I still need to wear a mask? Yes. Can I go out to a restaurant, or are there places, entertainment halls operating? No. So I get this virus, which by the way has parts of fetuses and parts of animals.
Oh, the vaccination.
Yeah, they're not. Oh, did I say virus? Yeah. If I get the vaccine, it's got all those terrible things plus the aerosol, lead, mercury, and all kinds of diseases in there to obviously be the antidote, or try to be the antidote for the disease. I do all those things and possibly change your DNA and RNA. And then it's still not good enough. So in the words of Brian Clement, he said it recently, and I love this quote: "We knew they were bad, but we didn't know they were this bad." And so I take it a step farther. We knew they were evil, but we didn't know they were this evil.
Well,
and I don't want to have, we don't need to have a pity party here. Mm-hmm. But one of the ways to solve a problem and to defeat an enemy and defeat evil ideas and trends is to identify the people and the problem.
Yeah, and to see the ideas that are not in touch with reality. Like I was saying earlier, we need to be able to breathe to detoxify it. And if we're wearing masks, we're finding that more and more people are getting colds because we're inhaling our own bacteria, people who are wearing masks. And we have sickness from breathing in things that we should be breathing out. COVID is a coronavirus. Coronavirus is the common cold. I mean, this is a basic tool for cleansing. So it's not something to be afraid of, essentially. We're in a pandemic of fear, and the fear is being weaponized in order to take away our freedoms. And so I think the whole idea, from my point of view, is it's important for us to stop abusing animals, to understand the underlying spinning fury. The core of all this is we've got billions of animals who we are terrorizing, and we're brutalizing, and we're forcing into disease and illness, and we're causing all kinds of disease to be in those animals, and then we're eating all that stuff. We should, if we want to be healthy, we could build our own immune system by eating healthy food, getting plenty of exercise and fresh air and sunshine, and healthy relationships and bonding. This is well understood to be the key of health. The opposite of health for a human being is to put a mask on, to social distance, to be afraid. All of those things shut down our immune system, to eat toxic foods, and so forth, and create a system of stress. And this is a massive stress when people are losing businesses that they or their parents spent generations building, and we're losing our freedom. This is going to cause stress, and stress causes disease. So what we're doing essentially is going along with a system that's designed to enslave us the same way we enslave animals. So the whole idea is this is, in a sense, a gift. I think this whole thing, if we can realize that this is a wake-up call to wake up from our systematic violence towards animals and ecosystems and each other, and move to a healthy, kind, compassionate way of living, and stop being afraid of bacteria and viruses, and being afraid of nature, and being afraid of animals, and being afraid of each other, and step out in a sense of joy and love. What veganism is, it's love. It's loving our life, loving others, loving animals. and loving freedom, loving our freedom and letting others be free. And I think this COVID is a direct attack on freedom and on love and on solidarity. And if we are not aware of this, it's kind of like The Who, the song by The Who, we won't get fooled again. We just keep getting fooled again. It's like Charlie Brown and
the football.
And the football. They just keep doing it, and we just keep like good old Charlie Brown. We keep trusting.
And you know what people call, at least with me, they say, well, you got to stop, pushing conspiracy theories. So what I tell them is, don't blame me. I read. You don't read. So if you want to call me a conspiracy theorist, then go ahead, but don't blame me because you don't read.
Yeah, because what we're talking about are facts. They're not theories.
Well, some of the things that we read might change and might not be true, a month or two from now. But at least we're trying to. You got to be a truth seeker in this world.
Do the research.
Do the research, and try not to be in an echo chamber, and where everybody agrees on and everything. That's actually one of the real disappointments that I see with the censorship of the internet, which is the town square has now shut out many voices, and now you're just going to have this big echo chamber. And if something like Parler actually gets back up again, which is co-founded by my friend Dan Bongino, who lives in this area, that's basically a Twitter for conservative voices. And so if everyone just polarizes, that's not good either. And so I think from a public policies perspective in the United States, if both sides can come to the understanding that Section 230, which protects these platforms from lawsuits such as restraint of trade and antitrust and other issues, I gave you the example, and I'll say it again. On Comcast for cable news, your cable box, your cable company, you're watching an advertisement for Dish Network, which is their competitor, and Comcast Cable doesn't have the right to not allow them to advertise because that would be restraint of trade.
Right.
So these companies, which are now multi-billion, run by billionaires, have more power than the President of the United States, which on the front of it as a libertarian actually sounded like a good idea at first. I like the idea of it. However, more power than the government. It's nice we have civilian leadership over the military. A guy wearing a suit, a scoundrel like Bill Clinton, for example, and I know I'm going a little bit of a tangent, had more power than the Joint Chiefs of Staffs and the guy in the nuclear sub. And I like that, and the idea that our businesses are more powerful. In Thailand, where I spent time, the king owns all of the best commercial real estate, all the shopping centers. And here in the United States, the kings are made we make our kings through owning property at a very local and individual businessman's level. And so I really relate to that. However, this is a very big problem. So we have to repeal Section 230.
Yeah, right. Well, I think we have to remember that the CIA has a lot of experience in overthrowing governments. I mean, they've been doing it around the world for 50 years, starting with Iran and many other ones. And we're seeing the same thing happen right now, I think, in the United States. I mean, the same tactic is taking over the media. You control the media. You control the narrative in the society. And when you control the narrative in the society, people have to, if they don't agree, they don't have a voice. And this has been done over and over again.
So I love that we're getting I'd say controversial. We're kind of in that realm where if we got popular enough on this show, we would be deplatformed. And so my goal here today is that hopefully this episodes and some of the others that are related will get so popular that the next thing I know, the Traveling Vegan channel is gone from YouTube. And if that doesn't happen, then we weren't big enough and we didn't get the message out enough. So we'll just have to keep spreading the message.
Thanks.
So Will, thank you so much for joining the show today. Your book, The World Peace Diet, is considered the most important, the number one vegan book. It's considered one of the most important books of the last 100 years. It's been translated into 18 languages. Around the world, they actually have chapters where groups of people meet and talk about the main ideas in the book. And so thank you for making the connection between the routine abuse and treatment of these animals and then what's happening to us here in our society after thousands of years of developing a civilization, that we could actually be taking this many steps backwards. It's just, you know what it is? It's just unacceptable. So we'll just keep speaking the truth. We'll keep speaking out. And thank you so much for your role in speaking out.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for watching. When we liberate animals, we liberate ourselves. And I think that's the bitter pill, but it's actually delicious. The food gets better, life gets better, health gets better, everything gets better. Once we liberate animals, then we'll be free.
Thank you.
All right.